Shifting gears from the groove of the late 70s to the dawn of a new decade, the 1981 Washington Quarter captures a moment when modern minting techniques met collector curiosity head-on. You might not expect much flair from a series so familiar, but those who've peered through loops and turned over rolls know the early 80s brought fresh die varieties and a handful of production quirks that still catch even seasoned eyes today. By the time you finish this exploration, you'll be primed to spot the telltale signs, hidden doubling, mint mark anomalies, and off-center strikes, that can turn what seems like ordinary change into a prized find. The story of the Washington Quarter began in 1932, yet by 1981 the design had become a mainstay across every pocket in America. The mint at Philadelphia and Denver cranked out quarters in the hundreds of millions, driven by rising economic activity and the steady demand for small change. In 1981 alone, Philadelphia struck roughly 829 million quarters while Denver produced about 550 million. Those figures sound immense, but to a collector they represent a sea of opportunity, millions of coins, most lightly circulated, but enough hiding places for unique varieties to slip through quality control and into circulation. One of the most talked about features among collectors is the so-called D/S mintmark anomaly. In Denver's 1981 quarters, the D mintmark sometimes exhibits remnants of the previous S mintmark hub beneath it, evidence of a hub reversal error when the mint switched dies mid-production. Under magnification, you'll see a faint, ghostly S shadow just under one leg of the D. While many examples show only a whisper of this overdate, sharper impressions can fetch a meaningful premium. Estimates suggest only a few thousand examples bear any hint of the S, making them a must-check variety for anyone sorting through bulk rolls. Philadelphia specimens also offer intrigue, in the form of double die obverse. The 1981 PDD004 variety presents slight doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date, with faint secondary outlines trailing to the right and down. It's subtle enough that it may escape notice at first glance, but under raking light it almost glows as the doubled elements catch the eye. Collectors value these in any grade, but when you find one in AU58 or higher, the coin can command several $100s, compelling evidence that after nearly 50 years, Washington's visage still held surprises. On the reverse, the Denver pieces occasionally show a misplaced hub alignment, resulting in reverses that are rotated slightly clockwise. The eagle may appear to sit at a jaunty angle, its wings not quite horizontal. These off-center strikes range from just enough rotation to spot under a loop, typically around 3 degrees, to dramatic shifts of up to 8 degrees, where part of the rim is missing from view. Anything beyond 5 degrees is generally considered a formal error, and at that point, even modest circulation examples can fetch 2 to 3 times the value of a perfectly aligned counterpart. Beyond mint marks and rotations, planchet issues from 1981 offer more room for discovery. Some coins exhibit planchet lamination splits, thin sheets peeling away near the rim, while others show flow lines so pronounced they create a rippled surface texture. Both result from inconsistencies in the metal rolling process, and both are prized by error coin aficionados. A 1981 quarter with a bold lamination split can reach $75 to $100 in very fine condition, whereas a similar clip or split in mint state 60 might top $150. Trading records confirm that demand for these varieties remains strong. A sharp D/S strike in MS65 sold at a specialist error coin auction in early 2024 for $1,350, exceeding presale estimates by nearly 30%. Meanwhile, APDD004 in MS67 fetched $2,800 when it appeared in a private online sale later that spring, illustrating how top-end examples of these modern errors now stand shoulder to shoulder with rarities from much earlier eras. Personal stories add human flavor to these statistics. One collector recounts finding a D/S quarter in a roll purchased at a hardware store, tucked between screws and nails alongside everyday change. 18.5 million. Numbers that sound large, but when compared to earlier or later years, they give the 1988 issue a subtle edge in scarcity. It's not like hunting down a Carson City Morgan dollar, yet within the millions you'll find pockets where errors and die variations slip through, turning a handful of misplaced lines or doubled letters into collector's gold. Start by examining the lettering on the obverse. A genuine 1988 quarter shows crisp, evenly spaced United States of America and quarter dollar legends, but a small subset reveals a pronounced doubling of the TR in quarter. This comes from a double die obverse, where the hubbed die impressed the design twice with slight misalignment. Another sought-after variation is the doubling visible In God We Trust, on the left side of Washington's profile. Inspect the IN closely. If the vertical strokes have a shadow or ghost image, you might be holding a DDO-001 type of double die quarter. These aren't plentiful. Estimations place a few thousand surviving examples in circulation-grade condition, so spotting one can be as thrilling as finding a rare stamp in a stack of old letters. Beyond doubling, die cracks and cuds can transform an everyday quarter into a conversation piece. Look along the rim near the eagle's left wing. A thin raised line deviating from the smooth field could signal a die crack, evidence of a worn die that should have been retired. Collectors prize these quirks for their uniqueness. A curved crack stretching from the rim into the field can fetch a premium, especially if it's bold enough to be visible without magnification. In tougher grade examples, the cracks might form spiderweb patterns, each one a snapshot of that specific die's final days before failure. When it comes to real-world numbers, high-grade MS67 and MS68 specimens of a regular 1988 Denver or Philadelphia quarter might trade hands for $15 to $25 apiece, but a sharp DDO example in MS65 can hit $200 or more at auction. A particularly strong double die in MS67 once commanded over $1,000 when it appeared at a major auction house in late 2022, drawing spirited bids from error coin specialists. That sale set a new benchmark for modern Washington quarters, proving that even coins we spend every day can become prized rarities when nature and human error collide in the minting process. Beyond market value, each error carries a story. Collectors recount tales of mail clerks, grocery cashiers, and toll booth attendants who unknowingly handled these pieces, never realizing the tiny die shift that would one day send numismatists to study every curve of their quarter rolls. One DDO-001 example showed up in an unopened roll sold at a coin shop in 2019. The buyer, digging through rolls for a nice MS65 red Lincoln cent, stumbled upon the quarter and walked away with a six-figure gain, proof that patient searching can pay off big. Of course, condition reigns supreme. A DDO-001 quarter in EF40 might bring $50 or so, reflecting its desirability over a perfectly common circulated example worth face value. As you climb grades, EU50, MS60, MS63, the value jumps steeply, especially once you pass MS65 into gem territory. An MS67 DDO example can sell for $800 to $1,200 depending on sharpness and eye appeal, and in rare circumstances where the doubling is exceptionally bold, collectors have shelled out upwards of $2,000. For pieces without dramatic doubling, mint state survivors still hold value. MS68 regular strikes, untouched and brilliantly lustrous, hover around $25 to $30, while MS69 specimens, almost flawless save for the tiniest contact mark, can cross $100 if the strike is strong. If a coin exhibits proof-like qualities, with mirrored fields and frosted devices, even in a business strike issue, it might command a premium in the $50 to $75 range in MS65 PL condition. Wrapping up this exploration of the 1988 Washington quarter, it's clear that a routine roll of change can conceal something extraordinary. From the subtle shadow of a doubled letter to the branching pattern of a worn die, these modest quarters carry uncommon stories and real value for collectors who know where to look. Keep your eyes sharp and your loop close at hand. Before you pass that next quarter along, give it a glance you won't regret. And as we turn our attention to the next star of the show, prepare to dive into another era, another year where the ordinary became remarkable in the hands of mint workers and time alike. Sliding out of the world of mid-90s anomalies, our spotlight now falls on the 1980 Washington quarter, a coin that may look routine but hides a treasure trove of quirks and errors that seasoned collectors relish. Struck at both Philadelphia and Denver, this series saw massive mintages, yet a handful of irregularities slipped through quality control, creating varieties that can turn ordinary change into prized collectibles. The journey of the 1980 quarter begins with the economic backdrop of the era. Rising metal costs had just prompted the switch from silver to copper-nickel clad in 1965, and by 1980 the mint had refined its processes to handle a high demand for small change. Official figures list over 1.1 billion pieces from Philadelphia and about 855 million from Denver. With presses running at peak capacity, stress fractures and subtle die misalignments became inevitable, leaving behind error coins that whispered tales of industrial pressure and human oversight. One of the headline varieties for 1980 is the double die obverse from Philadelphia. Here, the second impression on the die created a mirrored ghost image in the lettering and date. Under magnification, Liberty shows a faint echo, as does the motto, "In God We Trust," while the date's numerals exhibit a slight shadow. In circulated grades, these can trade for as little as $20 to $40, mere pocket money for a novelty. But in uncirculated condition, values escalate quickly. MS-63 examples hover around $125 to $175, MS-65 pieces fetch $400 to $600, and true gems graded MS-67 or higher have crossed the $2,000 threshold in specialist auctions. At the Denver Mint, the story unfolds differently with its own double die obverse variety. Though less dramatic than its Philadelphia counterpart, the Denver DDO often reveals doubling on Washington's hair ribbon and the date digits. Collectors who compare the two varieties note that the Denver doubling tends to be more concentrated around the bust area, whereas Philadelphia's spreads across the entire legend. Denver DDOs in MS-65 can sell for $300 to $450, and a pristine MS-66 example might command upwards of $1,000, especially if the doubling is bold and the field's immaculate. Beyond double dies, 1980 quarters display a fascinating array of repunched mint marks on the Denver issues. In some specimens, the D appears first slightly off-center before the hammer realigns it correctly, leaving a faint secondary strike to one side. These RPMs range from whisper-light shadows, worth roughly $30 in circulated grades, to strikingly bold repetitions that draw $200 to $350 in uncirculated grades. A standout MS-66 with a crisp, clear double D can fetch more than $700 at auction, as RPM hunters compare die impressions with microscopic precision. If you thought cracks and chips were minor annoyances, think again. Die cracks formed when the hardened steel dies developed tiny fissures after countless strikes. On select 1980 quarters, these cracks travel from Washington's collar up into the word Liberty or slice across the reverse eagle's plumage like delicate lightning bolts. Collectors prize coins where these cracks create visually striking patterns, a Y-shaped rupture, a forked line branching through the motto, or a spider web-like network. In lower grades, a cracked die coin might sell for $10 to $25, in mint state, especially MS-64 to MS-66, those with bold, unbroken crack lines can fetch $100 to $250 apiece. Die chips and cuds add another layer of intrigue. When a small fragment of the die breaks away, the resulting void on the die causes a blobby, raised lump of metal on each struck coin in that location. On 1980 quarters, these cuds sometimes appear at the rim near the eagle's wing or beside Washington's cap. They're like accidental sculptural accents, and collectors enjoy hunting for the most dramatic examples. Values range widely depending on size and prominence. Minor chips trade for $15 to $30, while large cuds that interrupt multiple design elements can reach $200 or more if the coin otherwise grades well. Market trends for these modern-era errors reflect growing collector interest in post-1964 anomalies. Auction houses now feature dedicated error coin sessions, and specialist dealers maintain reference guides illustrating dozens of minor and major varieties for 1980 Washington quarters. Recent sales show that top-tier double dies and repunched mint marks can appreciate by 10 to 15% annually, a rate that outpaces many traditional coin segments, though enthusiasts caution that novelty booms can be volatile, with rapid price swings if an influx of new specimens saturates the market. One of the most endearing aspects of collecting 1980 errors is the personal stories they inspire. A veteran collector recalls using a handheld coin sorter that projected each quarter's edge under bright LEDs, when a crack or double die caught the light, the sorter would pause, prompting a manual inspection. That 1 in 1,000 thrill, spotting a ghost image in a batch of everyday change, becomes instantly addictive. Another hobbyist shared how he convinced a local bank teller to save any suspicious quarters from her drawer. Over months, he amassed a small hoard of error coins, turning a casual weekend hobby into a second income stream. Condition remains the ultimate arbiter of value. Grading companies demand sharp detail and clean fields for top grades. An MS65 DDO must show clear separation between the doubled images without distracting bag marks, while an RPM example requires a bold secondary strike that's more than just a faint ghost. Scratches, toning irregularities, and planchet flaws can drag down a coin's grade, and its price, by hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Collectors learn quickly to study PCGS and NGC census data, noting how many coins exist at each grade level to gauge rarity and set realistic expectations. For hands-on exploration, a simple kit suffices: a 10x jeweler's loupe, a soft bristle brush to remove dust, and adjustable LED lighting for raking effects that reveal hidden chips and cracks. Many experts suggest mounting a small digital microscope on a tabletop for detailed documentation, a practical tool for those who wish to share crisp images with online forums or submit coins for certification. The condition-based value spectrum for key 1,980 varieties shapes collector strategies. A circulated Philly DDO in fine to very fine condition might command $20 to $30, an accessible entry point for beginners. Uncirculated MS63 coins start around $100 to $150, appealing to mid-level collectors. When you edge into MS65 and above, prices jump: $400 for MS65, $700 to $900 for MS66, and beyond $1,200 for MS67 pieces with textbook error characteristics. Rarely, an MS68 DDO will cross $3,000 in a high-profile auction, fueled by competitive bidding among specialists. Seasoned hobbyists keep an eye on pop reports and auction archives to track price movements. Approach: faint impressions in lower mint states might sell for $30 to $50, while sharp, bold repunched mint marks in MS66 or higher can command $400 to $600. A standout MS67 example once commanded close to $1,000 in an online specialist auction. Beyond the headline varieties lie the unsung heroes: die cracks, die chips, and cut errors. A die crack is a fissure in the die that transfers onto the struck coin as raised lines or ridges, tiny rivers frozen in silver-gray metal. On some 1995 quarters, you'll find cracks snaking from Washington's earlobe toward the rim, or splitting the eagle's wing on the reverse. Collectors prize those with eye-catching patterns. A crack that forms a Y shape or one that splits across multiple elements can fetch $25 to $75 in lower grades, and $150 to $300 if the piece shines as a near gem. Cut errors, where a piece of the die literally breaks off, result in blobs of metal on the coin's edge or fields, sometimes resembling abstract art more than federal coinage. To appreciate these rarities fully, consider the production context. In 1995, computer imaging and die inspection were advancing, yet not infallible. The Philadelphia Mint churned out over 1.3 billion quarters, while Denver produced around 1.08 billion. With output that massive, even a handful of error coins represents a vanishingly small percentage, hence the thrill of discovering one in pocket change or rolls. Early reports from dealers in 1996 described mystery quarters showing peculiar doubling, piquing hobbyist bulletin boards and spurring roll hunts. Before the internet forums popularized these finds, local coin shop owners recall customers plunking down a dollar coin at the counter, only for the proprietor to examine it under a loupe and exclaim, "This is worth 10 times face." Condition, as always, dictates true market value. In circulated grades, most 1995 errors, faint doubling, minor die cracks, trade for between $5 and $25. They're conversation starters, not investments that will fund a retirement. But in mint state, especially MS65 and above, values multiply dramatically. Grading services like PCGS and NGC scrutinize each coin. Is the doubling bold and centered, or blurry and weak? Are there distracting bag marks, hairlines, or spots? A weakly stricken MS67 might disappoint at $300, whereas a pristine MS67 Plus with textbook doubling can fetch $1,500 or more. Records show an MS68 DDO breaking $18,600 at a major auction in late 2023, a testament to how high demand can drive prices skyward. Seasoned collectors will tell you that lighting and magnification are crucial. A standard 10x loupe reveals the broad strokes of doubling, but pinpoint LED lights or a small digital microscope can uncover faint details invisible to the naked eye. Many error specialists recommend examining both obverse and reverse under raking light, holding the coin at an angle so the light schemes across the surface, casting shadows that accentuate die cracks or doubling. Flip the coin under the light, and what looked blank may spring to life with hidden features. For those hunting in the wild, bank rolls remain a fertile ground. In the years following initial discoveries, veteran hounds bought tens of thousands of quarters, sorting them by hand, or later, by rollers that channeled coins past a stationary loop. Stories persist of collectors striking simple deals with tellers: if I return any error, you can keep it; if I find none, I'll only pay face value. A few dealers even stocked tubes labeled 1995 error quarters, underscoring the hobby's grassroots nature. Yet, not every dramatic anomaly is marketable. Over-enthusiastic magnification can mislead novices into seeing doubling where none exists, so-called mechanical doubling, a flat distortion caused by die movement during the strike. True double dies exhibit crisp, two-layered images; mechanical doubling appears shelf-like, with a flat, shelf-shaped metal buildup. Learning to distinguish between the two is essential. Misattributed mechanical doubling often depresses value if submitted to grading services. As the 25th anniversary of the 1995 quarter approaches this April, collector interest has spiked again. Commemorative sets offered by private firms, showcasing high-grade error specimens, have brought these modern oddities into mainstream numismatics. Auction houses now feature dedicated modern errors sessions, where enthusiasts bid fiercely on the boldest examples. Even casual collectors, drawn in by glossy ads in hobby magazines, are snapping up affordable MS63 pieces for as little as $75, happy to own a slice of minting history. For long-term investors, the 1995 error market offers both promise and caution. Its highly circulated base population means more potential finds, yet the most coveted pieces remain scarce. Spot prices for top-tier DDO and RPM, repunched mintmark, varieties have roughly doubled over the past decade, outpacing many vintage coin segments. But like any niche, it's subject to hype cycles. Prices can ebb if new discoveries flood the market, or surge as fresh collectors join the chase. So, what's the takeaway when you lift that quarter off the counter, or slide a roll of 50 onto your scanner? Treat every 1995 quarter as if it might whisper its secret. Learn to spot the telltale signs: the feathery outline beside a letter, the raised ridge of a die crack, the subtle halo next to a mintmark. Keep your tools handy, a loupe in your pocket, a penlight in your bag, and remember that in numismatics, patience and practice pay dividends. The next time you peer at Washington's doubled visage, you might just be holding a key to a small fortune. Now that we've unraveled the mysteries of the 1995 Washington quarter and glimpsed the world of modern errors, let's turn back the clock a decade and explore the 1980 series. It's another chapter in our story, full of its own quirks, surprises, and riches waiting to be uncovered.